I had a decent experience right away with my realtor. I liked him a lot. He was pretty good to me. But when it became a little bit more difficult, it was we were on our looking at our ninth house because we had already lost 8 bidding wars, right? And
Yikes.
I mean, this is peak of market COVID time. He you could tell the effort was starting to change, and then I got passed off to his protege or whatever you want to call it. Um, and I was fine with that, but it was just the level of service that I just still had no idea what I was doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just figured I walked into these houses, if I liked them, I made an offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we all do. And big picture, it is that simple, right? I mean, very large picture, but that's not comforting.
Yeah.
For me, that's comforting if I'm selling a house to you or we're working together. Like
True.
I know that that's the process. You don't, right? You have to have this list of things like, hey, I'm going to take care of you this entire step of the way. Here's what this looks like, where we're at right now. Big picture, like I tell my clients all the time, let's talk about big picture. Here's the process from, the first step being we're going to get you approved to last step, you get the keys on closing day and you're a homeowner.
Yeah.
So we like to talk about all that stuff right away about what that process looks like. And then, that carries over into, hey, this is big picture items. We'll talk about each step of the way. So big picture, and then we'll talk about it each more specifically as we go along. I have a huge passion for first time home buyers. It's something that I love doing. In terms of the grand scheme of things, it's not where the money is, right? But it's what makes me love my job. So, like, just example, I actually threw a first-time homebuyer under contract this morning. They're first-time homebuyers. A lot of them, even especially in today's world, they just don't have a lot of money, right? You don't have a lot of money to put away,
Yeah.
and that just is. Like,
Yeah.
no judgment on that. It just is. So, they're trying to compete against investors or parents that are buying their kids' homes because their kids can't compete either.
Yeah.
And there's a strategy about going through these things of, hey, we don't need, unless this is your dying wish, right? You don't need to get the nicest home. If you're looking sub 230, you don't need to be in the nicest home at 230. Why don't we settle for something maybe a little bit less than the nicest? And now we're not competing against anybody. Now you can actually close on the house because you can afford it. Now we can get the house for under asking. But if we're going to do the under asking at 230, we might as well get you some closing costs paid for instead of getting under asking, because the price difference isn't going to affect your payment much. But if I can keep you $5,000 in your pocket all day long, like that's going to be the world, especially since on average first time home buyers stay in their house for 3 to 5 years. So big picture, getting $5,000 off the list price doesn't really affect much for you.
Yeah.
Versus I get to keep $5,000 in my pocket at close. Or even better, I'm getting paid to buy this house. And that's happening right now with some VA buyers and stuff. But yeah,
But it's
long
all,
story short.
it's all part of the grand scheme and the complexities. Just as I'm listening in on this, there's stuff that I've learned, and I've been in the real estate game for 2 years again, and it's interesting to me as you can really break this down so simply and so just well spoken that any first time home buyer that's going to work with you is going to understand the process. But what they're mostly going to understand is that you've got the hard parts taken care of, and the easy things is the only things that they have to worry about.
Yeah, and I think it even goes beyond first-time home buyers, right? Like, there's some people that, most people buy 3-4 homes in their lifetime, right? So their first time, they don't understand it. Their second time, they still probably don't understand it. Like, they're not fully comfortable. Like, they're comfortable enough because they've seen the process work, but they're not comfortable with the process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's still just an education of, hey, this is what that process looks like still. Even on the buy side or the sell side, it's just, hey, here's what this process is going to look like, so that they're comfortable with it. That way when I, call them day 3 after we're under contract on something and I say, hey, we're looking at, we give you some earnest money, or this is what's going on. The inspector guys coming out to look at your house for the buyers that are buying your house, or hey, our inspector's coming out to look at the house that we're under contract on. They go, oh, that's the next step. Yes, we've talked about that. The inspection happens, we get the inspection back. And Garrett's also talked to me about, hey, realistically at this price point, this is what that inspection is going to look like. If you're buying a $225,000 house that's, built in 1950, it's not new. So we got to set that expectation too right away that this isn't going to be a clean sweep of an inspection. There's going to be some things that pop up, but a lot of them are not going to be big ticket items, and not a lot of them are even issues.
Yeah.
You know, they're paper issues, right? But hey, you got to go put on a new electrical outlet cover. That's like 25 cents from Menards. Like issue, yes. Big issue, not really worth.
Yeah, it's the process and just like the thought of the foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Right, foreshadowing the inspection's coming. Hey, you're gonna have to pay for this. So then when it comes up, they're not like, whoa, like we didn't know, like this
sure.
hidden fee. And then on top of that, it's like, hey, the house was built in the 1950s. It's not gonna be perfect, but I have been through the process enough times to know what's a big ticket item and what's scary and intimidating.
What do we need taken care of today to make sure you guys are comfortable in the home? And that conversation is different with everybody too. If some of those minor fixes are what make them comfortable, then great. But it's also going to be something that you have to understand from the seller's mindset too of like, you're asking me to change a light bulb to make this house contingent. Some sellers would just go, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And others would go, really?
Yeah.
This is what this is going to do?
I'm paying closing costs. And
I'm paying $5,000 in closing costs to help you guys get into this home, and now you want me to change a light bulb?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, people are people, right? Everybody is different. Everybody has a different scenario. And you just got to understand where they're at. Where they're your buyers, whether they're your sellers, whether your buyers are buying from a seller that's not your seller, you still have to understand, hey, where are these two people at in their lives, right? And you just got to try to fill that out. If it's not your client, you got to feel that out through the other realtor. And sometimes you can get more information, sometimes you don't, but it's always worth asking.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out where people are at in their lives because, where they're at in their life is going to dictate more about that person and what their needs are than what they are willing to tell you.
And just being a pretty charismatic person, how do you feel like understanding people has helped you in your career instead of just focusing on the deal?
Yeah, I think the intricacy of people is fascinating, right? Like, we're all different. And since we're all different, there's not like, there's no blanket insurance policy that covers everybody, which is fantastic. And you get to meet a lot of people. A lot of people they all just have different personalities, and they're all, it's cool because I get to show up every day and meet 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different clients, and each of those conversations look different, right? Each of them are at different spots in their lives. Are they looking at retirement soon, downsizing? Are they, buying something that's like their dream home for, a couple $1 million, or are they buying their first home for 200 or even 150, right? Like, all of those people are at different points in their lives, and each of them need something different, right? You get into the conversation of, hey, what are you looking for? What do you need? All this stuff. And it's very surface level at first, right? Like, I need a 3-bedroom house. I need a 2-bathroom house, all of this. And it's like, well, we haven't even talked about the most important part of this is the finance part, right? Like the financial aspect of that's going to dictate more for you than anything.
Yeah. Can't pick a 5-bed house.
Yeah. Like, you just have to be you have to be realistic too. But it's like, okay, I know what you need from a house aspect, but what's going on in your life? Like, what is causing you to move? Why are you looking to move? Why are you looking to sell your house? Like, you need more space. You plan to have more kids. What is it?
Yeah.
It's never just I can afford to. I mean, for some people it is, right? Like, there's occasional few that's like I can just afford to. Yeah.
Second homes.
But usually second homes are families upgrading because they're going to have more kids, or their house is getting a little small, or they're just like, hey, and that's the aspect that is where that I can finally afford what I want, so we're going to go buy it.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah, we're moving
but
up.
Usually
in
there's
price
still
brackets,
there's still an underlying thing of what's going on in my life. I don't like my house.
Yeah.
What I don't love where I'm currently at is a bigger issue and a bigger motivator than I can afford to buy. So it's just understanding where people are at in their lives, and then, like, I know the sales term would be to like put pressure on that the soft spot, but they have their own pressures. You know? Like, they don't need me doing that. They don't want me doing that. I don't want to do that. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm just there to help them. So we've already had that conversation of, hey, I don't like this aspect of my house.
Mm-hmm.
They know. They know they want out of their house.
Yeah.
So it's just, how can I help you? You know, how can I put myself in a position to best help you get to where you want to be?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, and I think people think about houses as just like, oh, they're houses and we're doing this. But it's like, you know, if you were going to go into your financial advisor, right, and you have all these big conversations about money, moving money around, that's essentially what you're doing in upgrading houses or selling houses and doing all this. And you have to feel comfortable with the process and what goes on. You know, in the financial world, you go to your financial advisor and say, hey, you know, I want to be in a mutual fund. I want my 401k in this type of account. Like, and usually they sit down and they explain what that is. You know, this is what this is all the money that your buckets are in.
Mm-hmm.
This is the different buckets that your money's in.
Got the S&P, you got bonds.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, right?
Right?
But they sit down and go through that process with you. And I feel like in the real estate game, that's what's lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Is the, hey, I'm not only contractually obligated to help you, right? But I want to help you. Like, you've come to me for help. Why would I not help you?
Mm.
You know, and I'm going to do everything I can to push that forward.
Yeah.
And do that.
Just really valuing the relationships over the transactions.
Yeah, I mean, these are people that they come to you, right? They come to you, hat in hand. I need help. I don't know where to get started, or hey, I got a home to sell. I'm not happy here. I want to go somewhere else. And some people, it's like, hey, I'm looking to buy my first home. Okay, great. Where
do we start? Where do you want to be?
And you know, it's like, I want to buy my first house. And it's like, okay, perfect. I guess I'm gonna have to ask you a bunch of questions right now because I don't know where you're at, right? I don't want to be overbearing, but I got to know where you're at. In terms of what you know about the process, you know, I don't really love asking the question if they have a budget in mind, because they don't know, right?
Yeah,
you don't know what you don't know.
No frame
you know,
of
what does $250,000 get me? Like, what does that even look like? Well, if you're not buying with cash, the two things you have to worry about are your down payment and your monthly payment, right? So it's like, okay, if you ask somebody on the street, like, what's your budget, right? Well, $300, $350. Do you have any idea what that payment looks like? No. I just kind of figured that's where I would be at.
That's where I feel like I'm.
And it's like, and that's where talking to a lender. I know people don't like that step in the process because it feels like it's being forceful of like, hey, like, this is getting real now. I'm talking to a lender. But the thing about a lender too is they're a backstop and a filtration system too, right? So like, there's no point in you wasting time trying to look for a house if you don't qualify for one, right? So like, with your credit score, your income, like, they'll give you pointers on how to get to where you want to be, and then we can start talking about all that stuff. Or, you know, if you're looking at a $250,000 house thinking that's all you can afford, and lender comes back and says, hey, you can actually afford $400, $450, $500. It's not like you have to go buy that, but now you can say, well, I don't have to be so strict on my $250 budget, right? Like, I can go up and buy a $275 if I like one. So it's a very important process that I think a lot of home buyers, that's where we go back to, again, the process of like, hey, this is the process. And that is very much so step one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we got to go talk to a lender. If you don't have one, I got one for you. We have to understand what our budget is. And not even, like, you have to understand what your budget is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the
biggest
thing,
is you have to understand what your budget is, not only what they approve you for, but where in that spectrum are you comfortable, right? Like, I have plenty of clients that get approved for, you know, say just $3,000 a month, or approved for a $3,000 a month mortgage payment, but they're comfortable at 21. Perfect. Now
That's where we're at. That's our
we know now that you're comfortable at 21. If you find the perfect house, I know that you're comfortable up to like $2,250 a month, right? And then when we find the house, like property taxes and all that stuff, kind of, you know, it's different everywhere.
Yeah.
But ballpark, I know that you're comfortable at 21. Whether it's 2135, 2090, like, you're comfortable at 21.
Yeah, that's
ish,
the
right?
base.
The base number that we're going to go off of.
Little variable, yeah.
So it's just like pushing that process that, I mean, it's not, I don't want it to come off as pushy, right? Like, I don't want to be like, you have to talk to a lender before I even work with you.
Of course, yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, hey, until we even know where you're financially at, there's no point in us even like going to look at anything. And that's just being, honest. I want to try to be as honest as I can, but also look out for the clients. I mean, I have a boatload of clients right now, and I'm always taking on more.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I can't take time away from my clients that are looking to, they're serious about buying.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take 3 hours out of my day to go and show you a house or show you 3 houses or 4 or 5 or 6 without having that blanket of, hey, we know where we're at financially,
Yeah.
And it's a hard conversation I don't love having ever.
But
it's true, right? Like, I don't want you to waste your time. I mean, I can say selfishly, like, I don't want to waste my time, but it's like it's not a waste of time on my part, right? Like, I enjoy meeting people. I love meeting new clients. Like, you're going to be a client at some point, and I want to meet you, but I can't take time away from the people that are serious, qualified buyers or sellers to go and spend a couple hours with somebody that we have no idea what we can get approved for.
And just to piggyback off that, I feel like the people who are qualified that have had to wait to like get their pre-approval and stuff, they value it so much more because you're sitting there in a position where you can give them your full attention, you can give them the time that they need and also deserve because they've showed, hey, I'm willing to put the effort in that you need from me for you to be able to do your job to the fullest level.
Yeah, and I try to tell that to people all the time is like, I can't do my job until I know what we can afford. Like, you're handcuffing me by saying, I want to go look at houses before I know what I can afford. Because what am I supposed to say? Like, I can't do anything, right? Like, we walk into the house and you're like, oh, I really like this. And it's like, well, by the time you get approved, this is going to be gone.
Yeah.
That's why I strongly encourage everybody, do not look at Zillow, do not look at homes.com, do not look at realtor.com. Like, I understand that looking at all that stuff is fun and that's what got you into and being ready to home buy, or you're on my you're on my social media page and you're like, hey, I'm looking at these houses, I'm ready to buy, right? I'm glad that you're mentally ready to buy. But now let's get nitty gritty and start talking about numbers. And talking to a lender you're not locked into buying a house.
Yeah, you're not even locked in with that lender.
No, like we're just finding out numbers, and I love my lender, and I think all my clients that have ever used them have loved them. But it's like, hey, you're not locked into anything. This is just an application. You're filling it out. You're seeing what the credit score. The interesting thing is your credit score for buying a house is different than like your credit score.
Yep.
So it's a little bit more vigorous process.
Yeah.
And then, there's a bunch of different boxes that lenders have to check too. Mm-hmm. So even if you say, hey, Garrett, I make $150,000 a year, I should have no issue getting a house, right?
I also spend X, Y, and Z on the
I spend X, Y, and Z on things. I spent 7 months unemployed last year.
I just got this brand new car.
Yeah, like there's just a lot of things that go into this that there's a big box that lenders have to check. And some are more flexible than others because some of them are able to keep them in house a little bit more and actually service the loan themselves instead of like selling it. But it's one of those things that you have to talk to them, right? Like, you tell me, hey Garrett, I'm making 400 G's a year. I'm ready to go buy a house.
Will be.
I'm ready to go buy a house, right? It's like perfect, And I'm not saying I don't think you don't make 400,000. It's just like, hey, if we go find you at the base level, if we go find you a house for, $900,000 and you make $400,000 a year and you like it, we can't do anything. We can't make an offer. I can't even negotiate with the seller at that point, or the builder or selling agent, whoever it is, right? I can't negotiate with them at all because we have no buying power. Okay, great, yeah. Let's get it locked in at $900,000 with a $10,000 credit to get our interest rate down or whatever that looks like. oh yeah, but also we're gonna have to wait a week for my buyer to get financing lined up, or a week and a half. Like sometimes it takes a little while. You know, if you have a little different situation, it just takes